Good morning. Hi, friends, and happy Tuesday, actually. I had to travel over the weekend for a meeting down in Lafayette, Louisiana yesterday to meet with one of my customers. So I wasn't able to record this on my usual Monday morning. I made it home around 2 a.m., got a few hours of sleep, and now I am back at it. So let's go. Um, for anyone that is new to my podcast, welcome. My name is Libby, and this is my audio journal, Finding Joy in the Shadows, where I spend time each week talking about the fun curveballs life throws our way and help us look for pockets of joy. This is also an opportunity for me to continue working through my own life struggles while also sharing ways for anyone else listening who might be listening and want to work through some areas in your own life that might need some work. So that the goal of this is so we all find joy together. For today's conversation, uh, if anyone has ever found themselves stuck in a rut, I'm going to walk us through how I find my joy again in doing some resets. So we're going to talk through burnout and reset. But before we get started, per usual, spend a few minutes catching up on some things that caught my eye last week. Um, let's see. I will say I'm still kind of blocking out a lot of outer layers. So my viewpoints right now, especially on the socials, is still just BTS, food, and animals. So my LPs, my Libby's problems are kind of being viewed through that very narrow tunnel at the moment. Um, I am recording this episode during the week of Thanksgiving, so Thanksgiving is just 2 days away. Now this happens to be my absolute favorite holiday because it is all about food. I don't have to buy anyone presents. I don't have to wrap any presents. All I have to do is bring some food and eat the food and then go home and take a nap. So I love Thanksgiving. Now, I will admit I have become a bit of a food snob in my old age. Not really much to say there. I am my father's daughter through and through. And when it comes to holiday meals, I have some pretty strong opinions. Some staples on our family's table always include our family's special corn recipe, which we borrowed, quote unquote, using the quotation ears. We borrowed from someone back in the 80s from a church cookbook. And over the years, I have, if I'm allowed to say, grown to perfect the recipe. And so now it's just simply my corn recipe that everyone asks me to bring for Thanksgiving. And it's absolutely divine. It's actually better the next day when it's cold and all the flavors have mixed together. And I'm drooling just thinking about it. But we also have to have my sister's green bean casserole with the fried onions on top. I know that's her favorite. And on our table, we always had a dish of sweet potatoes with marshmallows. Nothing fancy with like the brown sugar crumblings or pecans or anything like that. Just sweet potatoes with roasted marshmallows on top. Um, to me, those are non-negotiable staples that need to be on the table. But I will say, for the sweet potatoes, they must be freshly roasted. Um, Sorry to my dad. I know he loved the ones that came out of a can, but in 2024, we roast them. These dishes are always, I don't know, I feel like they're the heart and soul of any good holiday meal. Um, and while this episode won't air in time for me to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, which I hope you do, um, I believe this one should drop at least a week or two before Hanukkah, Christmas, and Kwanzaa. So I'm going to take a quick moment here and just wish everyone a happy holiday season. And I hope by the time you're listening to this that it's a happy holiday season for you. All right. So moving on to some BTS news. Speaking of holidays, this update goes out to my very sweet, very special cousin, Jonathan, who let me know that he is patiently waiting for his next update on my quote unquote Korean boys. So, Jonathan, here you go. My homeboy and other bias, Taeyong, uh, aka V, is releasing two new songs. One is coming out like tomorrow, and the other one's going to be coming out next week. And I cannot contain my excitement. So, obviously, by the time this episode airs, both songs will be already available. So, if you haven't listened to them yet, stop what you're doing and go give them a listen now. Here's why I am so pumped for them. Both of the songs are going to highlight V's sultry 1940s inspired style. And for anyone who knows me, that's right in my wheelhouse. I have always been a sucker for all things vintage, especially music from the jazz and big band swing era, basically anything from the 1920s up through the 1940s and 50s, I'm obsessed with. And it was actually this love for retro vibes that was something my brother Matt and I bonded over deeply. It was one of our most cherished connections. It's also a big reason why I gravitated towards V when I started learning about who these guys in BTS are, because I noticed that he had this just outward love for 1940s jazz swing era as well. It was always evident. And when he released his solo album last year, I was actually convinced, along with many other fans, that his solo album was actually going to lean into that jazzy style, but instead he surprised everyone with the 90s pop sound. But now it seems like he is finally stepping into that timeless jazzy vibe that I know I have been waiting for. So there's two songs that are coming out. They're both going to be 1940s style. I think they're well. I know one for sure is going to be Christmas, but the one that's coming out in a couple of days, it's called Winter Ahead, and I think it might have a Christmas vibe, but I'm not sure. But both songs are going to fully embrace the jazz and swing style that V has seemed to always be destined for. During BTS's 10-year anniversary celebration last June, V showcased his jazz skills by performing White Christmas and another Bing Crosby classic, Heaven. And fun fact, something I learned last year, is that the Bing Crosby estate has been a devoted fan of V's on Instagram and on Twitter for years, often leaving many comments and posts of encouragement to him. So it wasn't a complete surprise to hear that the other song that he's releasing is a duet of White Christmas with, yes, Bing Crosby himself, brought to life by the magic of technology. Not sure what it's going to sound like, but I'm picturing Natalie Cole's Unforgettable duet with her dad, Nat King Cole, on the song Unforgettable. I don't know exactly how it's going to sound, but knowing V's vintage inspired style, he has sung this song in short clips in the past. So he obviously can embrace the song, and just pairing it with Bing Crosby's iconic velvety voice, like this collaboration is bound to break the internet. So be prepared. If I'm sure you might not have heard of the first duet that he has coming out this week, which is called Winter Ahead. But the White Christmas duet that's coming out next week, I'm sure many of you will have already heard of that one at least. So very, very excited for that. Okay, Jonathan, I hope that made you happy. Okay. What else is going on outside of my K-pop world? Well, not a whole lot, to be honest. I've been little heads down with work. But the other day, I was at my local grocery store and I am a creature of habit. So I go to the same store. I like to go to the same cashier line. I actually have a favorite cashier. And let me tell you, she is probably one of the most fabulous women I have ever encountered. And honestly, I aspire to be her or to be like her when I grow up. Now, rule of thumb, we don't ask women how old they are. And so I'm not exactly sure how old she is, but I'm guessing she's somewhere in her early to mid 80s, if I had to guess. But this woman, she dresses to impress. Every time I see her, she is dressed to the nines. She is sporting black leather pants paired with some of the most spectacular, bedazzled belt buckles I have ever seen. Her hair, her nails, her makeup are always done, always on point. Now, don't get me wrong, most people these days, myself included, are all about comfy casual. And trust me, if I don't have to wash my hair or put on full makeup, I won't. In this post COVID world, I have fully embraced presenting myself just as God has made me. But this woman, this lady, she is out here bringing her A game every single day. And I can't help but admire her for it. So I'm at the grocery store last week and I'm waiting in line for her lane. And when the neighboring cashier waved me over, so I didn't have to wait any longer than I had to, I, begrudgingly walked over. And then I instantly started grabbing the items that were on the low part of my cart. And I started bringing them up to the cashier's level so that they didn't have to bend. And I feel it makes their job a little easier. And that's when I glanced over to my right and I noticed my favorite cashier struggling to lift a ton of heavy items while this much younger man, probably around my age, mid 40s, stood there completely unfazed. Now, nobody asked me, but I chose to step in and started bringing all of the heavier items up to her level so she wouldn't have to bend. And she kept swatting me away, telling me that it was unnecessary, but I still continued to help anyway. And she was so grateful and to my delight rewarded me with a free piece of candy, which I happily accepted. Now, I didn't make a fuss to the man. I didn't shame him, didn't pull a Karen, didn't turn this into a big deal. I simply saw a need and quietly filled it. And I think if we stop and just look around us, right, we notice that many people in our community, they have to work in the later years in life, either because they enjoy it, they want something to do, and others, it's out of financial necessity. Either way, they still deserve respect. It's just small acts of patience and empathy can make a big difference, not just for others, but for the kind of world we can create together. Kindness is free, people, and offering help when and where can make a difference. That's all I'm saying. Let's look out for one another and remember the golden rule: respect and kindness go a long way. Okay. I can't think of any other topics or LPs that were on my radar over the last couple of days. So we'll go ahead and dive in. I've got my iced coffee on hand. I'm probably going to be sucking this down throughout the episode because I'm very tired. Lulu Joy is actually home today. She is recovering from her 2-night stay at Camp Bow Wow. So I'm trying to get this done before she wakes up from her 8th nap. And I can hear construction going on across the street. I see a delivery guy delivering furniture. So I'm trying to get this in before there's any too much background noise kind of filling in. So I'm hoping I'm not talking too quickly. But for the rest of our time together, we're going to shift the focus towards the conversation of burnout, not just recognizing when we approach it or maybe realizing when we're already stuck in it, but the goal of today's episode is discovering how resetting our mind, body, and soul can actually guide us back to our joy. Burnout is something we've all faced at one point or another. It's that feeling of being physically, emotionally, and mentally drained, like we're running on empty. Recognizing burnout is important, and we're going to spend some time talking through how to identify some of the common signs. But here's the real question: what the heck do we do after we recognize it? How do we move away from this place of feeling stuck and overwhelmed to feeling light and joyful again? And that's where resetting comes in. Resetting isn't just about recovering from stress. It's about rediscovering the things that bring us joy, energy, and balance. It's also about giving ourselves permission to pause, to breathe, and to reconnect with the parts of our life that make us feel alive. By learning how to reset, we don't just recover, we create space to invite joy, balance, and a renewed sense of energy back into our lives. So let me ask you, and I know no one's going to be responding, so it's okay, but you can answer out loud if you want. When was the last time any of us felt the weight of burnout creeping in? What did it look like for you? The other day, I was catching up with one of my homeboys, Chi, and we were doing our usual, what's up, what's new? And his reply to this made me legit laugh out loud. And he said that he was seconds away from running for the hills and taking a job at Home Depot just to keep his sanity. And sure, it was funny. And I know he meant it to be funny, but it also hit me how relatable that feeling is. Chi's joke really struck me. And it stuck with me because it's something I have heard so often from friends, family, and other coworkers. Why do so many of us let burnout feel inevitable? When do we actually pause to check in on our mental state and pay attention to the signals our body and mind are sending us to take a step back, reset, and take care of ourselves? And to be clear, it's not just Chi. I hear it all the time. Friends will say, life is so crazy right now, I just don't have time to do anything for myself. This especially comes up when I talk to my friends that have kids, or sometimes I'll hear secondhand stories from my friends and their friends' experiences. Time feels like such a luxury, with everyone constantly demanding more and more from us. And for any professionals listening, it's no different. Deadlines pile up, KPIs keep getting bigger, and the work never really ends. The pressure is real, no matter where we are in life. Burnout is something we all experience differently too. Some of us are able to recognize our body's warning signs as we approach burnout, while others, myself included in this, only realize it once we're fully in the thick of it. And then there are those individuals who might never recognize the signs themselves. But to those of us outside looking in, sometimes we can see the signs. Yet, even if we do notice the warning signs in the people around us, sometimes we can feel helpless to intervene, especially if they have a personality where it makes it difficult for them to hear or accept that what they're actually experiencing might just be burnout. Now, I know this won't come as a shock to anyone, but here's the thing. There's no right or wrong way to approach burnout. It's all about finding what works best for us. So for this topic, I didn't want to rely solely on my own perspective. So I reached out to a few people within my inner circle for their insights. Now, these are peeps who, from where I sit, always seem to have their you-know-what together. They radiate calm, cool, and collected energy, no matter what life seems to throw their way. And not surprisingly, when I asked them how they identify and manage burnout, their responses all had a ton of similarities, and many matched what the expert websites were telling me while I was doing my research on what to be on the lookout for. So, to those of you listening who know I reached out to you about this topic, congrats. It has been confirmed you are, in fact, in tune with your body and mind, and are already taking the necessary steps to reset and refocus during times of burnout. Here's a sampling of what they shared with me. They are all keenly aware of certain changes that take place within them. Some notice they gain or lose weight. They notice having more headaches than usual. Some will have skin flare-ups, or they'll notice they are eating, drinking, and sleeping way too much, but it's poor sleep, so they're always feeling tired. Fatigue is actually a very common thread, not just amongst my friends that I reached out to about this, but also on the expert websites. Always feeling tired. My friends also notice when they get that feeling of brain fog, they feel paralyzed and unable to move or make a decision. They have major mood swings and find themselves just simply not enjoying anything or caring about much. And they feel irritable and depressed for no clear reason. They couldn't tell you why. Can anyone relate to these? Any of these examples resonate with you? This one struck me the most because it's a huge warning sign for me that I am already in the midst of burnout, and that is clenching. When I am overstressed and already deep into burnout, I notice I am constantly clenching my teeth. Anyone else do that? So, for starters, what exactly is burnout? Well, according to the mighty Google machine, the definition of burnout is simply prolonged stress that leaves us feeling physically, emotionally, and mentally drained. And it's not just about being tired. It's about feeling like we're running on empty with no way to refill our tank. When we think about burnout, most of us probably picture work-related stress. And I get it, right? Those never-ending deadlines, constant emails, and that constant pressure to perform. But burnout doesn't just apply to our jobs. Parenting, caregiving for family members, and financial pressures, these are all roles and responsibilities that often feel never-ending and can leave very little room for personal recovery. The key phrase here is prolonged stress. It's that relentless nature of it all that takes such a toll on us. That's why the term running on empty could feel so relatable. It's like being the Energizer Bunny. We're going, but without the batteries to sustain us. Some of the other common signs of burnout to be on the lookout for include feeling drained, feeling mentally distant, or feeling just overall negative about life, about work, which is often accompanied by a noticeable reduction in one's productivity. Burnout can also manifest itself physically with symptoms like muscle pains, headaches, or stomach issues. It can manifest itself emotionally. It may present as feelings of hopelessness, cynicism, or bitterness. We can see behavioral changes in us, such as withdrawing from others, increased impatience, right? We're just always agitated. Or we have difficulty handling criticism. These are all key indicators to be on the lookout for as the possibility that we are dealing with burnout. Now, resetting bridges the gap between burnout and joy. It's about learning to be aware when something feels off and stepping away from those life stressors so that we can reclaim space for ourselves. For me, it all begins with small, simple moments that I want to share in a little bit. But before we dive into what resetting looks like, let's first take a moment together to reflect on how we are feeling. When burnout sneaks in, how do we begin teaching ourselves to identify the emotions, physical sensations, or mental weight we have been carrying? Sometimes it's tough to figure out exactly where the discomfort is actually coming from, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, or maybe it's a mix of both. The lines between them can often blur, leaving us a little unsure of where to start. And I know that was true when I started working on this myself. So, how do we break through that uncertainty and start tuning in to what's really happening with us? What I have found is that the power of a 60-second pause can be so impactful. Pausing for 60 seconds, for 1 minute, it's a small but powerful way to take a step back, check in with ourselves, and really listen to what our minds and bodies are telling us. Here's where I want to encourage us to start, because this is actually exactly where I started. For me, it's about giving ourselves permission to pause, even if it's just for 1 minute, just for 60 seconds. And that might look different for each of us. But for me, what it looks like is I sit down on the floor, crisscross applesauce style, and I toss a toy around for Lulu Joy because to her, we have now entered play mode. But for me, this is a moment to tune out as many thoughts as possible. And I start tuning into myself for just 1 minute, just 60 seconds. I try to push all thoughts aside and I focus on my breathing, inhaling deeply through my nose and exhaling through my mouth. Then I let my body guide me and I ask myself, am I clenching my jaw? Are my shoulders hunched and tense? Is there a pit in my stomach? Have I noticed more headaches than usual? Even if we're not able to fully tune everything out for 60 seconds, try and take notice of which thoughts come racing back first. Speaking solely for myself, I have found that those initial thoughts that come racing back quickly are usually that first thought that takes my attention away from what I'm doing while breathing, often reveal where much of my stress is coming from, helps me identify it. And sometimes those can be the cause of my burnout. So it's these small, simple steps that might seem basic, but I have found them to be incredibly effective in helping me detect and understand what I'm feeling. I noticed it's a gentle, intentional way to reconnect, and it helps me take the first step towards resetting. If it helps, here are some questions you can ask yourself during this 1 minute check-in. And I'll put these in the episode notes as well. You can ask yourself, am I more tired than usual, even after getting enough sleep? Do I feel tense, achy, or physically drained? Am I experiencing stomach issues or unexplained pains? Maybe some of us have pains that doctors can't tell us where they're coming from. Do I have detached or unmotivated feelings about things that I used to enjoy? Does my mind feel foggy, like I just can't think clearly, can't focus on anything? Am I saying am I saying yes to too many things and therefore neglecting my own needs? That's a big one. When was the last time I felt truly rested and at peace with things? So these are just sampling of questions, if you can get through the full 60 seconds, that you can ask yourself. And again, this is where I started. I have been doing this for 1 to 2 years now, tops. So I am still very much a student of this process. But what I have learned so far is that these small intentional check-ins have been life-changing for me. They have helped me shift from reacting to stress in the moment to recognizing it and addressing it before it snowballs. For so long, I felt stuck in this cycle of just simply reacting from one stressful moment to the next without having the tools and understanding that I could take a step back and start to understand what was building beneath the surface. And so I found that this 1 minute practice has made a huge difference in my life. And that's exactly why I wanted to share it with you. Because when we take even a small step toward awareness, we open the door to resetting and creating a space for joy. Okay, so let's say we felt something was off, but couldn't quite identify the who, what, when, where, how. And we've now tried this 60-second meditation and noticed maybe we do feel drained. We have noticed more headaches than usual. Maybe our motivation hasn't been that great lately. Well, now what? First and foremost, I want everyone listening to understand that feeling burned out is not a personal failure. It is okay to admit to yourself and to those around you that you're dealing with burnout, that you're feeling burned out. Burnout is simply our body and mind's way of sending us signals that something needs attention. Awareness is always the first step towards change. But here's the thing. If we deny or ignore these signals, we are not just brushing off temporary discomfort. We could actually be setting ourselves up for even greater challenges down the road. When we push through burnout without addressing its root causes, these stresses can begin to compound. Physically, we may start to experience more frequent illnesses because our immune system becomes weaker the longer we go not addressing the stresses and problems that we're feeling. Those persistent headaches, stomach issues, or mystery pains, they are not going to just magically go away either. In fact, they could even intensify, potentially leading to chronic health conditions for us, which makes us feel like we are just forever sick. Emotionally, ignoring burnout can make us more susceptible to those feelings of hopelessness, resentment, or bring on full-on depression, making it that much harder to connect with others or find joy in the things we used to love. So if we're feeling these signs of burnout, know this. Listening to our body and mind is not a sign of weakness. It's actually an act of strength. It is the first step towards breaking the cycle and finding a healthier, more balanced way forward. Ignoring the burnout is not going to make us stronger. It is simply going to delay the inevitable crash. And trust me, the crash will come. The good news, when we learn to recognize when things are starting to shift, when we start noticing when things start to feel a little off, starting off by taking just 60 seconds to pause and ask ourselves a few basic questions to help us take inventory of how we are doing can give us a vital starting point for change. So the next question is, well, now what? And this is where our weekly life hack begins. I've put together a mix of ideas, some things I have personally found helpful, some advice from friends and family, a few tips from experts, and of course, a little help from my favorite personal assistant. Yes, that's you, ChatGPT. I like these suggestions because they are all simple. They are all practical actions we can take to help us reset, refocus, and begin to bring more joy and balance back into our lives when we notice we're dealing with burnout. So after our 60-second pause or meditation, if that feels more fitting to call it, the next steps I recommend to help us move towards a reset are create a gratitude list. Stay hydrated. Start moving our bodies and evaluate our diet. I'm going to say that again. The next steps I recommend to help us move towards a reset when dealing with burnout is 1, create a gratitude list. Stay hydrated, start moving our bodies, and evaluate our diet. I've highlighted these 4 because they are simple, actionable steps that we have total control over. And yes, I know these suggestions might not sound groundbreaking. In hindsight, they might even seem a little corny. I get it. But stick with me, and I will explain why they are so important if you can look past the corniness of it all. In January 2024, so about a year ago from when I'm recording this episode, I was in a tough mental space. And I spoke about this stage in my life in episode 4 of this podcast. Fortunately, though, for me, I was able to recognize it. And I began making small positive changes towards getting healthy. Now, during this time, I picked up a small notebook from Barnes & Noble and decided to use it for a gratitude journal. I had seen somewhere online that this could help. And at first, I was just simply listing all the things I was thankful for. But it quickly evolved into something so much more meaningful. I started adding prayers and manifestations that really resonated with me. And over time, this simple practice became a key part of my morning routine, helping me navigate challenges and find balance in my mental health. Now, I want to be clear, keep me honest. Creating this gratitude list was not a direct response to burnout, but this practice has helped me in ways I could not fully realize at the time. And I will admit, I do not do this every single morning, but I make it a point to revisit my journal at least once a week. After my shower, when I'm done pulling myself together and I've made my bed and I've grabbed my cold brew, I will sit down at my desk, I will open my journal, and I will read through all of the pages. And I actually take a moment to say the prayers and manifestations out loud. And I reflect on the things I am truly grateful for. For me, what I found is that speaking these prayers and affirmations and reminders out loud, not just reading it in my mind, but actually saying it out loud, reinforces how much good already exists in my life. And it reminds me of my own strength and power. Again, I know it might sound corny to some of you listening out there that might resist this, and that's okay if it does sound corny. But I am sorry. It's true. This small act fills me with a sense of empowerment, and I cannot deny feeling happier after I remind myself of all the blessings I already have in my life and the amazing people I do have around me, supporting me and cheering me on. Creating a gratitude list is one of the easiest things we can do to start shifting ourselves from being in a place of negativity. If you haven't tried this before, I highly recommend you give it a try. The second item on my suggested list is staying hydrated. Now, you might be wondering, what does water have to do with resetting our mind, body, and soul during times of burnout? It's just water, right? Well, and this is actually a fun fact because when I saw this as a recommendation from an expert site, I had those exact same thoughts. I was like, why does everyone keep focusing on the water that I take? Like, it's just water. But what I learned is that dehydration can actually make symptoms like fatigue, mood swings, and difficulty concentrating so much worse. When we are dehydrated, The dehydration can even elevate stress hormone levels like cortisol, which can lead to harmful effects like gaining weight, which won't make us happy. It can weaken our immunity. Higher levels of cortisol can impact our blood pressure, raising it, which is not good, and even disrupt our sleep and our mood. Now, I will admit, drinking the recommended amount of water each day has always been a challenge for me. And for whatever reason, when I raise my cold brew, which has ice in it, which melts eventually, apparently that's not a good water source. So I am not a good example with the drinking the water. This is still a challenge for me as well. Some days I do better than others, and I try to set hourly goals. But if I miss them or I fall short, I remind myself that it's okay. The important thing is to keep trying and start fresh for the next day. However, this is an easy, tangible way that we can start to shift our mind and body from a negative state to a positive state, simply by staying hydrated. The third item on my suggested list is increasing movement. Now, before you roll your eyes or think I'm suggesting you start training for a marathon, let me clarify. This is about committing to regular movement and exercise, even if it's just one day a week. For me, that means dragging myself out of bed every Tuesday morning, although I didn't do it today because I got home at 2 a.m. and I didn't want to work out at 6 a.m. But every Tuesday morning, I drag myself out of bed at 6 a.m. and I head over to my coach Katie's house. And I know not everyone has the budget for a personal trainer, and that's okay. But for me, Katie has become a cornerstone of my routine, and she is definitely at the top of my gratitude list. Her workouts are intense, probably some of the toughest I've ever done, but I always feel leaving stronger and more energized. And it makes me giggle, but it always reminds me of that classic line from the movie Legally Blonde, where Elle says, exercise gives you endorphins. Endorphins make you happy. Happy people don't kill their husbands. And honestly, Elle Woods was onto something. Moving our bodies, whether it's through a workout or a walk around our neighborhood, or even just some simple stretches at home at the end of the day while the kids are doing homework, or sitting on the ground, throwing a toy around for your dog. It's simple. It's a simple and effective way that we can reset and recharge, not just physically, but mentally too. And speaking of energy, let's talk about our diet. What we eat has a significant impact on how we feel. So the last item on my short list is that can help us reset from burnout is reevaluating what we are eating. If we notice that most of our meals are coming from a frozen bag, a box, or a fast food restaurant, it might be worth considering some small intentional changes. While convenient, these types of foods are often high in processed ingredients, added sugars, and unhealthy fats, which can negatively impact our bodies and minds, especially during times of burnout. They can actually contribute more to that fatigue, brain fog, and mood swings that we're feeling, making it that much harder for us to cope with the stress or feel energized. Even making just a few adjustments can make a big difference. Swapping out one takeout meal a week for something homemade, or simply adding more fresh ingredients like veggies to your plate can help boost our energy levels and overall well-being. The goal is not about striving for perfection. It's about making progress by finding a balance that works for our lifestyle. We can nourish our body in a way that feels sustainable and empowering without the pressure to completely overhaul everything all at once. I'm not saying everything we eat has to be Whole30 compliant. Small shifts. Maybe spending an hour grilling extra protein for the week or prepping a simple salad to add in to other meals can help lead to changes over time. It's not about giving up the foods we love. Lord knows, I got a big old bowl of chocolate in my house that I always say it's for my nieces and nephews, but I eat it too. It's not about giving up the foods we love. It's about incorporating more of what will fuel us, what will help us reset our mind, body, and soul. So that's it. Just 4 simple suggestions to help us start to reset when dealing with burnout. How does this all sound? Does any of this resonate with you? Okay, so let's recap. The first step is to start listening to our bodies and becoming more aware of when we feel things beginning to shift. Taking a 60-second pause to breathe and clear our minds can be a powerful way to start acknowledging what we're truly feeling. If we can acknowledge it, we can name it, we can focus, we can put a plan together. This simple act sets the stage for resetting ourselves and moving us towards a healthier state of mind. From there, we can build on that foundation with small, practical steps like creating a gratitude list, reminding us of the good that we have in our life, no matter how big or small that list is. Drinking more water will keep us hydrated, which can lower our stress levels. Moving our bodies, that is going to reset our minds, be more energized, be more positive. And we can examine our diet by removing processed crap out of our bodies and replacing little bits here and there with healthier options will have a profound impact. Instead of doing all of this, right? Maybe doing all 4 is too much. Focus on finding at least one manageable, meaningful adjustment that will support your body and mind as you work towards feeling more balanced and energized. I love these suggestions because I have found them to be simple, practical steps that we all can take. These small intentional shifts, they are designed to help us recharge our energy and build momentum for other positive changes over time. There are plenty of other categories that we can assess in our life that I could have added and made this a 5-hour seminar, but I took the 4 that could be quick, actionable, and we can do all on our own. Burnout thrives on inaction. The longer we ignore it, the worse everything can become. But even the smallest step can help us push back and regain our balance. It's not about perfection. It's about progress and making small, meaningful changes that align with what we need most in our lives. Whether it's swapping one takeout meal for something homemade, or maybe it's setting boundaries around our time and our schedule, or simply allowing ourselves a moment of stillness to reset. Every step matters, and sometimes that step might involve reaching out to a professional. Whether it's a therapist, a life coach, or a mentor, maybe you might need someone who can help guide you through some deeper challenges you might be facing. These actions No matter how small they seem, they are powerful tools to help us reclaim our well being. And I think they're all okay to do. Burnout, like I said, does not resolve itself. But through these small, intentional acts, we can slowly reclaim our energy and our joy again. So, what is one small action you can take today to move yourself closer to being more balanced? Maybe it's as simple as taking a walk, drinking an extra glass of water. Or maybe it's just simply sitting quietly with a cup of tea and breathing deeply for 5 minutes. Whatever it is, commit to it for yourself. Because your well-being isn't just important, it's essential. We all deserve to feel grounded and energized and at peace. Okay, I think I've babbled on long enough. As always, we will add to this next week. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, has an amazing week, and I look forward to our next chat. Peace out, friends.